Well, good morning and a great big howdy. It's good to be with you once more. I'd like to get into my report quickly, and my topic today has to do with what we call H-2A workers. Some of our crops throughout eastern North Carolina are very labor intensive, and that is particularly true with tobacco harvest, sweet potato harvest, things of that nature. And sadly, in one way, there's not enough local labor to take care of this terrific task. So, to solve that problem, we have worked out something called H-2A program, which is governed by the government, and they monitor it. And workers come in from abroad to do these tasks, and for the most part, it's worked out very nicely. It was in 2018 in Missouri. Boot Hill farmer Joel Brown was struggling to find help. He and his brother were scrambling to manage the farm's irrigated corn, rice, cotton, and soybean crops. It was hard to find local people near Gideon who could pass a drug test and show up for work. There is no one here to hire, Brown says. The biggest demand is truck drivers, and you can't find them down here. Brown decided to try something far out, that is, way far out. He called an agent who specialized in hiring foreign workers through the government's H-2A guest worker program. 4 years later, Brown says he's happy to report his experience has, for the most part, been a success. He initially hired 4 South Africans and then expanded to 8. They've worked for him up to 9 months out of the year based on government restrictions. They have been great employees, Brown said. My American employees love working with them. Their culture is different from ours, but we couldn't farm on the scale we do today without them. They know that, and our American employees know it too. Those last statements have been echoed by countless farmers around the country, with ag labor issues only getting worse. More row crop farmers like Brown are taking another look at the federal government's guest worker program to solve their labor worries, which is why Todd Miller has been so busy these days. He's CEO at Head Honchos, an agency that finds guest workers for U.S. farms through the H-2A program. The H-2A program has become a farm-saving resource for farmers in the United States who rely on temporary agricultural labor. It addresses the dire seasonal and temporary labor needs that many farmers face, especially during planting, cultivating, harvesting crops, and managing livestock when there's a peak demand for labor. The dedicated and available labor that previous generations had access to is no longer available, and workers with a strong work ethic have evaporated into a fast-changing world. The majority of workers going to the United States come from Mexico and other Spanish-speaking countries such as Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. A growing number of workers are being brought in from South Africa because of their ability to speak English and their reputation of being experienced tractor and equipment operators. You can get any nationality you want in the H-2A program, and we chose South Africans because their English is better, Brown says. They understand technology. There are a lot of large farms in South Africa, and some of these guys are coming off those farms. Brown and his brother Tolliver have 4 full-time U.S. employees. They're guest workers on 9-month visas. Some run from February to November, and others from November to February. That way they can match the right number of workers to how busy they are. H-2A is a federal program with some complicated regulations to consider. That's why if you don't have the time to do the research, find a lawyer with H-2A experience. Also, make sure you find a reputable hiring agent. Reputable agents are listed with the Department of Labor as certified agents, Miller says. That means an agent in good standing because there is some oversight from the DOL. That's the Department of Labor. As for references when you review agents, lately make sure you know the rules. Brown lists just a few, and these are a few of the rules that are associated with H-2A employment. Wages. H-2A employees or employers are required to pay their employees special pay rates, which vary by locality. His wages have increased $4 an hour from $13.37 per hour to $17.54 today. Further south in Arkansas, wages are lower. The variances are set up by the Department of Labor. The variances, that is, are set up. An average price here in North Carolina is in the $17 range when you add everything involved with the H-2A package. Also, expenses include transportation and housing. The employer must provide transportation to and from the job site and guarantee employment for the number of hours equal to at least 75% of the work time defined in the contract. The employer must also provide housing, which will be inspected. You need to provide housing, a way to get to and from work, and access to a grocery store, Brown says. You have to have fire extinguishers and first aid kits in the vehicles they drive. They have to have houses with screens on all the windows. I'm really big on the H-2A program, but the worst thing about it is government regulations, Brown says. They are terrible. The Department of Labor really doesn't understand farming. They will audit you, check paperwork, and talk to your employees. They are a fining agency, so if there is something wrong, you're going to get a fine. Using the H-2A program has been smooth sailing for farmer Brandon Hunt of Herndon, Kentucky, at least as far as the Department of Labor is concerned. I'm treating my guys 100% by the book when it comes to regulations, says Hunt, who has 10 H-2A guest workers on his 10,000-acre corn, soybean, wheat, hemp, and tobacco farm in western Kentucky. His challenge is language, since all his workers are from Mexico and only a few are bilingual. It's just as much a struggle for them as it is for me, for them to tell me what's going on when I'm not sitting there looking at problem X, he says. We overcome that in minor ways, and we use Google Translate quite a lot, but our farming operation is not becoming less complex. It's becoming more complex. So sometimes things get lost in translation. Even so, Hunt says he's tickled to have people on the farm each day eager to work. My guys are here to work, and they are teachable, he says. They appreciate having work, and that's not always easy to find these days. It's hard to find Americans who want to participate in row crop ag production because of the demands. I could hire an American in a heartbeat if I could find one, but who wants to stay. I don't have to worry that one of these guys is going to quit here in the middle of fall harvest. They are here to complete their job before they go home. Hunt is also impressed that his guest workers are so team-oriented. We don't have bickering or social problems, he says. They are a cohesive unit. If there's a task that's not done correctly, it's never due to someone unwilling to work. Their culture is to be extremely proud of their work. And like Brown in Missouri, Hunt feels a connection with his foreign workers that goes beyond writing out paychecks. I think as much about H-2A guys as anyone who has been on my payroll. My son goes on the tractor with them. I have the utmost confidence and trust to turn my own child loose with each of them in the field. That's how much I think of them. And I think that sentiment is very overall true. and we are very blessed to have these workers in our area. And were it not for them, our farmers would be in a terrific bind as far as harvest and planting and all the jobs that go on the farm. So we shout out to the H-2As. We appreciate their attention and their energy and all that they do. There's a group in North Carolina called the Tobacco Growers Association of North Carolina, and it's somewhat of a commodity group, and they exist to promote tobacco both locally and around the world. And as is the case with families, with groups, with clubs, whatever, you have some people who stand out and who have contributed in many ways. Recently at a meeting, three gentlemen who had been in the tobacco business all their lives were honored. This is a report on a ceremony that occurred at the at the trade show, at the farm show in Raleigh back in February. And during that time, the Tobacco Growers Association of North Carolina had its annual meeting, and one thing on the agenda was honoring these tobacco greats. This is a report on it. The Tobacco Growers Association announces its Hall of Fame class. The Tobacco Growers Association of North Carolina has selected 3 new inductees into its Hall of Fame. They are Frank Granger, Larry Wooten, and the late Jerome Vick. The 3 were recognized recently during the association's 42nd annual meeting. They joined the first inductees, North Carolina Ag Commissioner Steve Troxler, well-known North Carolina State economist Blake Brown, and longtime North Carolina State University Extension Specialist Bill Collins, and co-director of the North Carolina Agricultural Leadership Development Program. According to Graham Boyd, the Tobacco Growers Association Executive Vice President, the North Carolina Research Commission, consisting of the Tobacco Growers Association, the North Carolina Farm Bureau, the Tobacco Foundation, the Grange, and the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, selected the Hall of Fame nominees. He said Granger and Vick were Tobacco Grower Association North Carolina founding members. Here's some words from Frank Granger. Granger was very appreciative of being selected as a Hall of Fame member. I want to thank each and every one of you for recognizing me here in this meeting. I have put a lifetime of work into tobacco. Let me tell you a short story on how it all started. Granger continued, one Thursday afternoon, my daddy and I were in the field suckering tobacco. My daddy said, "You get the bottom suckers, I'll get the tops." We were going down the row and I was on my hands and knees pulling the bottom suckers. He was breaking out the tops and dropping them on the ground. After several hours, I rolled over and looked up at him. I said, one day I'm going to invent something that's going to kill these suckers. He said, dream on, boy. I'll be right there with you. That's what his dad said. Granger began his career promoting offshoot tea sucker control manufactured by Procter & Gamble. In 1984, he started his own company, Fair Products Incorporated, offering tobacco sucker control materials. He is especially proud of his invention, OTAC, a material used on organically grown, pesticide-free and MH-free tobacco. It's the best sucker control I've ever made in my entire life, he said. Granger added, I've been involved in this thing a long time, and sucker control has led the way for me to be here today. Now here's reference to Jerome Vick, another one of the honorees, the late Jerome Vick. Vick farmed in Wilson County, North Carolina, and as mentioned above, was the co-founder of the Tobacco Growers Association of North Carolina. His son, Lynn Vick, spoke on his behalf. We're most proud that Daddy got this award today. He spent a lifetime working and worrying about tobacco. This is a very high honor for him. Linvick said he remembers fondly about 40 years ago when his father and Jim Graham were sitting in the Dorton Arena on the North Carolina State Fairgrounds. The two were smoking. Suddenly, a fire marshal came up to them and said they couldn't smoke inside the building. The elderly and feisty Vic spoke up and said, "We built this building. If we burn it down, we'll build another one." Larry Wooten, who was also honored, Wooten was unable to attend, and he served for a long time as the North Carolina Farm Bureau president and grew up on a tobacco farm in Pender County. So he was likewise honored. On the subject of tobacco, there's a group in Wilson, North Carolina, that go under the name Artisan Leaf. And Artisan Leaf preserves tobacco history through their immaculate and festive artwork. A space in Wilson is using something different to spice up their interior while paying homage to the rich history of tobacco in eastern North Carolina. Artisan Leaf in Wilson uses one-of-a-kind tobacco leaf furniture, panels, architecture components, and decorative accessories to set themselves apart from typical furniture. In the late 1800s, Wilson was tabbed as the world's largest tobacco market, which brought in money, employment, businesses, and more. Artisan Leaf offers their items in different shades and tones that can provide a different look for each home's aesthetic. They use different kinds of tobacco to give them this look, such as flue-cured, burley, and cigar leaf. So that's something good that's happening over in Wilson, and I hope I can give you further information at a subsequent broadcast. My time is up. I've enjoyed being with you. Thank you for indulging me, and I look forward to being with you next week, and God bless.